You're listening to Giles Brown on TRE Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. The book China Doesn't Want You to Read, that's what CNN said, about Red Roulette, an insider story of wealth, power, corruption and vengeance in today's China. It's the headline-making and best-selling tradition of Bill Browder's Red Notice, this unique memoir from an entrepreneur who rose to the zenith of power in 21st century China. What happened next was remarkable, shocking, and throws a disturbing light on what's happening over there. The book is called Red Roulette. It's by Desmond Shum. Delighted to be joining me on the line from New York, Desmond himself. Desmond, good afternoon from us. Good morning to you.
Yes, very nice talking to you.
Good to have you with us. If we go back to the turn of the century between the 1990s and 2000s, it seemed that China was somewhere we could do business with. There was a new spirit in China. Shanghai was booming. Hong Kong would seemingly go on as normal. This was the new superpower, and it had got away from the shackles of Mao, and perhaps this was a China that the West could do business with. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you rose in this new China.
Well, I'm actually born in Shanghai, and my parents, I'm born in the tail end of Mao's era, right? I mean, the Cultural Revolution. And my parents took me to the Hong Kong when I was 10, and then because they feel that's a better future for me if we get out of China. And I came over to the States for education at a college, and I went back to China right after. I started my career in private equity, which was the beginning of the era of private equity in the early 90s. And then subsequently, I moved to Beijing from Hong Kong in 1997, and I started my own career as an entrepreneur in 2000s, and early 2000s I met my ex-wife, and then we actually very soon get to know a wife of the premier Wen Jiabao, and he was a premier for China for a decade, and so right before Xi Jinping, so he was 2003 until 2012, he was a premier until, I'm just missing a word. No, so Xi Jinping came to power at 2012. So a decade before that, he was a premier. So it's 2003 and to 2012. And then we were business partner with Auntie Jiang, wife of the premier.
And describe to me what was like, because obviously, from a European perspective, people are saying, right, China is the new frontier. China is opening for business. Shanghai is an incredible city. It is like something out of a science fiction movie. These huge skyscrapers go up. And as opposed to saying, go west, young man, it seemed to be a question of go east, young man. Now, but that was from the Western point of view. So as somebody who was already established there, obviously there were contacts. Was it as exciting and the possibilities were there for you, given your background?
It is. I mean, even, I think the golden age, from my view, is of China is starting from about 2000. I would say 1995, 98 period. That was a golden period. I was in China, and you feel like everything is changing under your feet. You're standing on quicksand. And then everything is possible, and everything's looking up, and it is a very exciting period. I mean, it's to be in the middle of it, and that's why I decided to try my luck as an entrepreneur at about 2000, which is when actually China just joined WTO.
Yeah. And I mean, as it said, people were talking about this market. I mean, we're not just talking about a country. This is a huge market, and you could almost feel people sort of drooling at the possibilities. You'd got away from Hong Kong because that's a special circumstance, and found yourself in Beijing, and very quickly through your contacts. Was it air cargo? Was it an air terminal, and also hotels? I mean, these were the big possibilities to look, to build a business and make a fair amount of money too, Desmond.
Yes. So we met up with we get to know Auntie Jiang, and then subsequently, pretty soon we would get into business with her, and she's sort of runs the entire family affair of the Wen family when the husband is so busy running the country essentially, and we. China is, today still it's 1/6 of global population. So 1 in 6 people is a human being on this earth is living in China. So it is a huge market.
I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, you were born at the end of the Mao era. I remember, because I am of a certain age, I remember Tiananmen and the crushing there. And so
Yes.
when China seemingly opened up for business, perhaps, the West, as they've done in Russia, thought that this was a market, and if we brought market forces into China, then once again, a democracy would somehow develop. But of course, this isn't the case, and it is not so easy, or it's perhaps naive of people in the West to say, okay, if you get a market, then therefore, human rights and will flourish, and also there won't be corruption. And if you look back at any history, of course, it's all families. It's always been families, and the Chinese Communist Party, using communist in parentheses, it is again mainly an elite, a family elite that looks after its own.
That's. You actually cover a lot of areas in the situation in China. In terms of family, I in the book I call them red blood because I'm actually equivocating that with the blue blood from the West in the medieval times, because this is a crust of people. We're talking a few hundred family actually. So what does that mean? Is the elders in those families, they are senior party leader in when the Communist Party took over China in 1949. Like just a simple example is Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, his father is one of the top 10 general when they took over in 1949. And when I say red blood, what does that mean actually in real life? I'll tell you what it means in real life. In real life is these people are born in a different section of a hospital. Their hospital section just reserved for them. If you're not vice minister, money cannot buy you access. If you're not vice minister, you would not have any access to that section of the hospital. And then they grow up at a different compound, which is only reserved for high power officials. And then they go into a different primary school. Their school catered only to them. And then they go to a different secondary school. And then they get fast tracked into the best universities in China. Now, Xi Jinping went to Tsinghua University, which actually I don't know about today because my book came out, but I was the honorary trustee of Tsinghua University. And but on a daily basis, they got a separate food supply system. So their farmland, they just grow food supply for them. We're not talking about you picking the best foods supply off the market and ship it to them. I'm talking about farmland just reserved growing their food. Even the liquor they drink is marked on the bottle. These liquor are for them. You have a crust of people who live about the crowd in China, and they rule China, and then their offsprings rule China, like Xi Jinping.
So presumably, if you want to become successful in China, you have to, shall we say, get on, make a petition or give gifts, or if I go in as a Western investment bank to China or a venture capital firm, I have to presumably bring on somebody from that elite as a director, or put them on my board. Or if I'm an investor, and I'm building a series of skyscrapers in Shanghai or whatever. You have to make the right permits and the right approaches to these people to get anything done. Then, Desmond.
Yeah, China is well known. We all call China what? A party state. What does that mean? That means the party cell, the cell of the party is infiltrate every cell of the society. So when I say you need to pay up to power, you need to pay up to political power, I don't mean just big business. I mean every business. So if you are a person running a newspaper stand in the street corner, you need to pay up to the party boss who run your section of the street. And the bigger your business is, you have to go to further up. I mean, and every business, I mean, no exception. I mean, obviously, in our case, we get all the way to the family of the premier. But if you you just mentioned like Western banks, right? It is well known, and then you go on the internet, you would say one of the very, very famous case is J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan, and they're fined by the United States government. They hire this red blood princelings and in the investment banking division in order to get business from the large state-owned enterprises.
And presumably, because it is controlled and it is China, and they have a fearsome and ferocious security infrastructure who do the bidding of the red bloods, there is very little opposition, and any opposition is crushed, like we see with, for example, the Uyghur. I don't want to get involved with the whole Uyghur thing, but we see the way that, and I've interviewed people who have been detained in Chinese camps, and we see the way that they have a very, shall we call it, an effective way of crushing any opposition?
I think, I was interesting. I was talking to a journalist in Hungary yesterday, and then Hungarian journalist, and the communist states and dictatorships states run things very differently. Are very similarly. I mean, they're always almost exactly the same philosophy people come from. The output, first of all, the party want to make sure there's, especially in China, there is no organized opposition. So they want make every individual and the actor in the society with very limited cohesion to other members of the society. So Uyghur is one thing. That's an ethnic group. Religion, right? I mean, that if you go on video, you will see they burn down churches. The Catholic Church is sponsored by the state. Essentially, Xi Jinping's word is more important than the word of the God, even in China's Catholic Church. So they want to, and then they encourage people to rap on each other. So to distrust this trust of bonding among people. So every person is individualized as an atom. So as a party, we all well known how pervasive the Chinese the CCP's monitoring is on every individual, and that's how they want to run the society. Obviously, that's essentially you have a system against one single individual, then you can crush any possible opposition.
And I suppose, again, I go back to this naivety of the West who got involved because they didn't understand, the centuries-long game that Chinese society has had. Because, as Westerners, we are taught very little about China. As a British person, I'm taught very little about China until what we would call, the Opium Wars, the Boxer Rebellion, etc. So the West tends to underestimate China, and they do it at its peril. And so China was happy to, the Red Bloods were quite happy to transfer from a nationalized industry to the new markets because it generated more money for them. But at the end of the day, they were just interested in gaining more benefit, be it financial power, be it property, be it, but as long as they keep themselves secure and keep that dynasty secure. What was it like when it was good for you because private jets, houses. I mean, we were fed this image of Shanghai with people driving Mercedes-Benz, playing golf, country clubs, tennis, and this whole new. What we were being told was this whole new wave of Chinese millionaires who were going to come and go on holiday, even here in Spain, to play golf. They would travel half the world, and on the surface it looked like this was going to turn into a new financial paradise. What was it like for you when it was good?
I think let me just go back and talk about the first section of what you just talked about.
Yeah.
I think it's not just the West underestimate; it's a bulk of we Chinese in China also underestimate. Because what happened with China is 1979. It was we always talk about 1979 as the beginning of China's economic liberalization. What actually happened was in 1979, the state was absolutely bankrupt. So that's why they have no choice but let the peasants to grow some crops the market wants, let small business to open the shop to sell something, make something the market wants. It's not because they wish on it, they want to loosen the control. It's they have no other choice because the state was absolutely bankrupt. And the subsequent growth and all that, it gave the power, it gave more money to the power, the red bloods. You give power to the red bloods, and then they go with it. And then I think obviously that's West have made a wrong assumption of their wishes in the long term. A bulk of the Chinese, we in China, also make the wrong assumption. We thought that's going to go on. We thought that's one day we will be more like you. When I mean you, I mean the West. Democracy, liberty, human rights, and all that. So it's just not you, and we all underestimate their desire, absolute desire to hold on to power and to control, essentially control 1/6 of humanity. So that's one thing. And the second part of what you just talked about is like, what are the good days? I just give you a simple number. When I start business, we start, going to China early 90s. A very successful private business will be making a revenue of 2-3 million US at today's exchange rate. Obviously, today the richest, not even the richest. China, at one time it's almost on par with the US in terms of number of billionaires in China, right? And then today, obviously, the richest Chinese are tens of billions. So there's a period of for all of us, including myself, money just gushing in, right? You're looking at like who is buying a private jet, and then at one time I was talking to the jet company is like, I want to buy the latest one. I was G5 550, and there's a line to it, the good days, and then it's like, can I jump the line, right? Can I find a way to, who do I need to know in the Chinese? It's like, where's the Guanxi part? Who is the leader of the Guanxi? I can jump the line to buy the jet, right? So it's that period of time. It's just like much. I just give you another example. It's widely reported anyway. In New York Times, we invest insurance company, Ping An Insurance, which today is the second largest insurance company. We invest about 2004. 2004. And we invest about 10 million US, and it become over 200 million US by 2008, 9. You just look at that scale, right? It's just that's exponential growth of wealth, and then it is. I'm not the only one having that, So that is a period of that.
You were working with your wife. You and your wife split, and you at some point with your son decided, and correct me if I'm going wrong, moved presumably to the States, moved out of China.
We're in the UK actually.
Okay, to the UK. Presumably you still had the business interests, but you were just managing from the UK. I mean, why did you decide to leave China at that, previous to say the mid teens, so 2015, 2016?
Yes, we did plenty of investment business, but bulk our business in the real estate. So we just example, we developed the Beijing Airport's logistic facility, which is the biggest logistic facility in the entire China. So you probably make it one of the biggest in the world. We did a Bulgari hotel of Beijing. We own a Bulgari hotel in Beijing. And then, so all sort of things. So actually, by the early days of Xi Jinping, one is I already seeing the return of the real estate business as it's going down. And then in some segment of the real estate business, you can see the returns collapsing. And then obviously the politics, very early on in Xi Jinping day, you see the politics is going a different way. So me and my ex-wife, Whitney already split, and then I actually closed my business. It took me 3 years to close down the business. So I actually entirely closed the business and then move out. And I advised Whitney do the same thing, and she believed her political connections will carry on, and she can do what she had done in the past. And she decided to stay.
And then you had this nightmare situation in 2017 where Whitney and three co-workers just disappeared.
Yeah. Yes.
Any warning, any sign, or was this literally one day there were no phone calls, there was no messaging? Was it just literally bam, gone?
If there is any warning, so 6 months before she disappeared on that day, Rich is almost exactly to the day. She was disappeared on September 3rd. And 6 months before that, she was barred from leaving the country. So she was locked down in China 6 months before. But what happened was it was just on that day, bam, gone. I mean, when we say disappear, literally like nobody heard anything from her, including her parents, for 4 years. And the government never acknowledged taking her. And, now today, 2017, but now it's like 5 years from now. She never been charged, just never been acknowledged by government. She had been taken by the government.
It's shocking, isn't it? And obviously you're in Europe, you're in London or wherever you are. And it must have been impossible to try because we talked about that security situation in China. People just fall off the radar. Terrifying that somebody at that level, you would think, could just disappear and then reappear.
Yes. It's so widely reported for Jack Ma, the quote-unquote the richest person in China, was disappeared for 6 months, right? So it is not an uncommon thing to happen to business person. Really, situations like that, you always has to do with internal high power politics in China, and obviously that's no human rights or private property protection to speak of. Everybody need to bow in front of political power. What happened in China reappearance was I decided. My book came out September 5th, so it's almost exactly a year to the day. And I picked the day because to commemorate the 4th anniversary of the disappearance. So the book was coming out on Tuesday, and then the Friday before, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times published articles about my upcoming book. And on Saturday, she called my mom and asked me, because of the time difference, she called my mom and asked me to call her back. That's the first time anybody in the world have heard from her in 4 years. And then she called to ask me to stop the book from publishing.
Yeah. I wonder why exactly. How do you pick up the phone and say, what do you say to somebody who's been gone for 4 years? You haven't heard a thing, and then you get a message like that. It must have been a terrible situation, because you've written this book, you want it to get out there, but she was in China at this point, I presume, and obviously the Chinese government are trying to as we've seen them do with tennis players, with whatever, to try and keep the official narrative going that everything is fine in China.
Yes, I think the two things I want to pick up what you just said. The first thing is, for sure is the government get wind of it. I mean, she has been isolated and gone for 4 years. She can't possibly know, from the Wall Street Journal or Financial Times that my book is coming. It's the government get wind of it, saw the news, hand her the phone, say, this is the message I want you to send. I mean, if she had a free access to the phone, she would talk to her mom, many months ago. I mean, very unfortunate, Whitney's mom passed away 6 months before she was reappeared, actually. So it is, and so we both know on the first call, I think, I definitely know, I mean, that call is being taped, recorded, listening. If not, somebody sitting right across from her, and they give her a paper, said, this is the message you need to send. So it's very difficult in that kind of situation, and even in a subsequent calls we had, to actually have a real communication, because you'd be listening, whatever she's saying, she's cautious and she's aware of what to say.
I won't, we won't tell the whole story of the book because we want people to go and buy it and buy it and everything. And obviously this is coming out in paperback, which is why we're speaking. But one thing strikes me, Desmond, because of the influence that China has around the world, if you write something like this, and you're sitting, anywhere in the world, we know how far China's influence is. Yeah. We know they have investments in Africa and in South America. I mean, surely for yourself, I mean, are you, and your son, are you not a little worried about this, or do you think it is more important to let people know the situation that really exists over there?
What China wants, the CCP wants, is they want, as you were mentioning, they want to control the narrative of China. They want to be the only storyteller of China. Anybody deviates from the narrative, they punish you, and they silence you. So that's what was about. And in my case, I just thought, a lot of it, for me, writing the book and publishing is two separate decisions, actually. I didn't write a book to publish. I write a book to give it to my son as a gift, trying to explain to my son, to our son, what happened, why her, his mom is gone. That was why I'm writing it. I published it because after 2 years into her disappearance, I got just really angry. I was like, I need to come out and tell the world what our story is. I need to bring attention to her case. I mean, in 2 years into her disappearance, nobody heard from her. The government never acknowledged taking her. We don't even know whether she's alive or dead. Bringing a book out, bring attention to her case. I mean, it's like, what worse can possibly happen to her? We don't even know whether she's alive. So that's why I decided to publish the book subsequently. Into my own situation, once I decided to go, that's why I didn't write a book to publish, because I don't want to bring them like the heat on me from the CCP. This is a ruthless political party with 90 million members. But once I decided to publish it, I sort of throw this concern behind me and move forward. Because if they want to do something, that's absolutely nothing I can do, right? I mean, this is a political party controlling the country, which is the second largest economy of the world. They have 90 million in the party. What the heck, a person like me, a single individual, can possibly defend myself? There's just no way. And I don't want to live in fear for the rest of my life. So I just throw those fear away and then out the window and then say, well, come here what may. This is what I'm going to do. And this is the way I'm going to live my life, and come here what may.
The book is called Red Roulette, an insider story of wealth, power, corruption, and vengeance in today's China. It's by Desmond Shum, who we've been speaking to today. Desmond, you're an incredibly brave person. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me today. If people want to, do you have a website? Do you do the social media thing? Can they find you online? Or can they download?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I mean, it's a pleasure to talk with you. I mean, I think if you search, just Google anything. I Google my name, a lot of things will come up. I don't really, run a sort of public media life for myself, but you will find a lot of things online.
Well, congratulations on the book. It's coming out in paperback today. Came out on paperback yesterday. It's called Red Roulette. It is by Desmond Shum. Desmond, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.